since the political system in Lebanon is sectarian, there can never be a majority. The system forces all sects to be present in the government, which is fine if the political parties are made up of everyone. But if each political party is reserved to one sect, how could you even consider working with one another in one government and achieving anything?
You said it earlier that you feel like you're a curious but fed up Lebanese citizen. And then I hear this undertone in a lot of your videos that you just were like, can't we just be a bit more creative about what is possible, what we could possibly achieve if we broke from this kind of historical shackle that was essentially forced upon all the people? Everybody, welcome back to Fractured. Today we have a really special opportunity to do something we haven't done yet, which is have one of our team members who's normally behind the camera come out in front of our camera. And so Ziad Ibraheem is going to be with us as one of our conversationalists, as well as a really wonderful guest that's coming to us from Beirut. And in the past, I've been speaking with Ziad a lot about we want to do an episode on Lebanon. We really want to talk about what's happening there, not just the most recent things, but also more of a history. So we're hoping that this is going to be the first of many connections with our special guest today. But when I asked Ziad, who should we talk to, who should we connect with, and he was like, you need to talk to Jad. You need to talk to Jad. Jad. He wouldn't stop talking about Jad. So we now have Jad Talks Politics with us. He's got a fantastic channel on Instagram and YouTube, and he is someone who has been studying political science at the Lebanese University. He's working towards a master's degree, but he also is a civil engineer who had previously studied at the University in Balmont. And so, Jad, we are really happy to have you with us today to unpack everything about Lebanon. So you are now responsible for telling the whole entire world what's really going on. No, I'm kidding. We really are happy to have you with us, and we would love to dive into it with you. But thanks so much for joining us. And Ziad, thank you so much for stepping out from behind the camera for the first time.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's good.
I'm happy to be here, guys. Thank you for the invite. I really appreciate it, Douglas. And Ziad, thank you for the referral.
Yeah, so we could take this in thousands of different directions. There's so much to unpack. Perhaps maybe we start with where are we right now? When you're paying attention to the news, if you are, it is pretty common that we're only hearing about the fact that the ceasefire is still holding. It's a fragile truce. And then when you hear the word ceasefire, it is like kind of a code word for everyone to say, we don't have to pay attention to that anymore. But I'd really like to understand where are we now, the basic data of how many lives have been lost, and 2,000 plus have been killed, 7,000 to 8,000 people have been wounded. You've got over 1 million displaced all over from the south. But really, what is it like right now for you in Beirut and for people inside Lebanon?
Okay, good question. So what I would describe the situation is a change in the way hostilities are happening, more so than an actual ceasefire. Because a ceasefire, in the name ceasefire, there should be no fire. Whereas there is fire every day, just not in Beirut, not in the Bekaa, not north of Litani. Almost yesterday, there was an evacuation order for a town that is actually north of the Litani River. However, the Israelis are committing destruction and demolitions across the 50 villages that they consider within their buffer zone, the yellow line that they dubbed. And if you look at the videos and the pictures of these areas, Bint Jbeil, Khiam, Naqoura, it's you can say it's like Gaza, which is ironic because Israeli officials keep telling everyone that we will make South Lebanon like Khan Yunis and Beth Hanun, but for some reason, we don't want to believe them. They are true about what they speak. They are very honest about their genocidal intent. And it's happening right before our eyes. And Hezbollah is also trying to resist the fact that Israel wants to go back to pre 2 March, which is basically the situation where Israel can act freely inside of Lebanon, while Hezbollah has limited authority or jurisdiction to respond. So they're trying to create a new balance where they inflict on Israel a bit of uh, losses, or they make it costlier for them to keep on attacking and infringing on our sovereignty and territory. Yeah, the only thing that actually led to this outcome is Trump's insistence on Netanyahu to keep it down a bit. Otherwise, I don't think Israel is even benefiting from this so called ceasefire, which is why they tried to rebel against it and uh, maybe agreed with Trump that we need to at least be able to keep on attacking what we consider are threats to our security. And this is the new status quo, which is definitely tied to the ongoing negotiations between Iran and the US.
Yeah, I mean, like in these conversations in the last 2 years, like go back to the previous ceasefire after the invasion into Gaza, and then renewed fighting inside Lebanon, and then another ceasefire in 24. You have everybody talking about this need for Israeli protection for the north. And yes, there have been many, many people in Israel that have been evacuated from the north, but the outsized response or proportionality here is just so outrageous, and it has been consistently, that we're not trying to play a numbers game here, but you have thousands of people dying in one area, and you have minimal, if 2 to 5, maybe some reports say 6 Israelis have been killed in northern Israel, right? But their response to that is to bomb neighborhoods in Beirut, to not just what a lot of people are calling ecocide in southern Lebanon, but you have all of this stuff that's unfolding. And as you're saying, that they're telling you exactly what they're going to do. They're not even hiding it. They're not pretending it. It's not spin. It's not political opinion anymore. It's like actual straight up statements. It's just shocking to me that they can say that they have knocked down Hezbollah to a point where they basically are only 10% of the power they once had, and yet they're still going to utilize this outsized engagement. And the people who are really suffering from it are the actual Lebanese citizens. So, like what? It's clearly not a ceasefire right now, because it doesn't even feel like it was really a ceasefire, because it was like a lopsided one where Israel said they still had the right to do whatever they really wanted to, and they're occupying territory in another country. So I don't know how that is a ceasefire per se. As you're saying, it's hostilities are still unfolding, things are still happening, but with the fact that there is some sense of an attempt at brokering some sort of peace in the situation in the region, what is that like for Lebanese? How are they responding to the prospects of peace between Lebanon and Israel and these talks that are happening in Washington?
I think anything that has to do with Israel directly creates a schism in Lebanese society, because I really don't think and have met very rarely people that actually consider Israel as something other than a threat in Lebanon. I would say a large majority of the Lebanese consider Israel as a threat. The difference is on the response to the threat. So some Lebanese say that the threat is so big and is backed by the biggest power in the world, and we don't stand a chance, and see that the Arab countries are getting out of the conflict and leaving the Palestinians on their own. So why should Lebanon be the only country, and actually the weakest out of all the Arabs, to keep on fighting this fight and staying in this conflict? Let's just end it, make peace with the devil that is at our borders, and maybe live in peace. The other side, which also considers Israel a threat, says that it is not possible to live in peace with such a genocidal and sectarian apartheid state. Both sides, I think, have some sort of truth because, yes, Israel is very powerful and we can't begin to compare the power that Lebanon has and the power that Israel has. But I think they both are still being short sighted when it comes to how to deal with Israel because the first side believes that there's a kumbaya ending to this conflict, as if we are, they give comparisons like Egypt, Jordan, the UAE, Morocco, which have different circumstances. They don't have occupied land, they don't have democratic uh, democratic. I'm not sure how democratic we are, but still, the people do have the people do have a say in how things are done here. And there's clearly a lot of people that do not want this approach and are willing to take up arms and against this peace with Israel, especially while it's still occupying land, while it's still breaching on our sovereignty. Even during the 20 past years, there was always Israeli jets, even if they were flying on high altitude, that uh, crossed our borders, drones that kept on gathering intelligence, navy that crossed the maritime borders and even on the land. Uh, Instances where they kidnapped a former here, land, what do they call him? Mm, The guy who has sheets. So there was always back and forth between us and them, saying we want peace just to get out of this very tiring situation is not how it should be sold. Iranians also, I don't think they don't want peace. Anyone wants peace, but how this peace is actually achieved is the essence of the matter. If you get peace by giving up everything, this is not peace. This is surrender. And surrender is even worse than living in conflict because you will not recognize yourself afterwards.
Yeah, I agree with this. As you mentioned, it's like a maybe everyone like agree and mention Israel. It's like a thread, but how can I maybe find solution in this point? I mean, I agree with like what you said. Like a both, it's have a, like a truth in some point, but I mean, without like a make a deal with Israel, how can we like a reach something like a peace or like a agreement with the Israeli? They have a power, and we have to find solution. I mean, yeah. What's your like opinion about this? Because I know I like what you said. Like all the Lebanese kind of like they don't agree like to consider Israel. It's not a threat, and but it's hard like to find the way um, to find like a agreement with them.
At this point, I don't think there's any other way than to actually negotiate with Israel. But as I said, even in negotiations, it's how you negotiate and what you negotiate on and what you want and what you're willing to give up, to concede, that actually matters. So negotiations for negotiation's sake, just to get some sort of deal, is ludicrous. And not negotiating just out of principle is is not doable anymore. We could do this because there was some kind of stable status quo before that could allow us not to actually go into negotiations. Although we did negotiate indirectly with Israelis for the maritime border demarcation a couple of years ago. So when you look back, it feels like the situation was kind of heading towards a status quo, which was very different than what is going on now, which tells a lot about how the situation between Iran and the US was, or where the situation between them was heading before the 7th of October attacks. And yeah, I'm not sure how the government is treating the negotiations, because at the end of the day, we know, the Israelis know, that the government has zero power over Hezbollah. And whatever deal we end up doing, first of all, the Israelis have no interest in getting in a deal that doesn't give them at least supremacy over our security and gives them the how the I'm not gonna say the maximum security they can achieve for themselves, but at least a large degree of that. Except in the instance of a very large pressure that the Trump administration puts on Israel to get a deal and sideline Lebanon from Iran. However, the Israelis want to push us into a situation where the government turns into Mahmoud Abbas government, which only has one job for them, and it is to actually combat Hezbollah militarily. In other words, treat a large portion of the Lebanese population as uh, not even illegal, just as militants that are a threat to the Lebanese state, just like Hamas is being treated by the Mahmoud Abbas government. Regardless of our opinions and political thoughts on these groups and how they operate, Hezbollah is made up of Lebanese people, just like Hamas is made up of Palestinian people. And going to this approach will definitely lead to clashes in Lebanon and will only serve Israel's interests. So this is definitely not the approach that the government should take. And they should be very clear and careful about what they want from this agreement. And until now, I'm not seeing that this is being taken into consideration. I think the government is either very scared and is conceding big time, or they just maybe don't know what they're doing, or just are doing whatever the Americans are telling them to do.
Yeah, but do you think like the people they trust with the government now? Because I can see there is like many people they not like a trust with the government, how like just like a go to make a deal with Israel, and many people they not like agree with on right now, and yeah, this is I think
Yeah, it goes back to the previous question. The people that consider that ending the conflict is the way to go are with the government. The people that consider that you can't make peace with Israel are against it. So basically, pro Hezbollah people are against the government, anti Hezbollah people are with whatever the government is doing. And it's a very black and white situation that will need nowhere eventually, except for the outcome that Israel wants, unfortunately.
So, in one of your recent videos, you really were talking about the the things you need to have a state and the difference between a state and people, or a state and government. And I really love this piece because you were talking about how there is no state without the population, or there is no territory without a population, and there is no state without a government. And so you were like saying these are all interconnected pieces, and that in, say, the West, we view them as separate, but there you guys view them as one, and therefore this damages the potential for people power, for identity, for all sorts of different things. You also had a different video that I really loved about identity. We could talk about that later. And I think Ziad has some commentary about that as well. Yeah. But I'm curious, the idea that Israel is looking at every Palestinian as Hamas, or that is now looking at every Lebanese as Hezbollah, is obviously ridiculous. And it's actually putting them in more danger because of the way they then behave towards actual citizens of these regions and these countries and these areas that don't have the desire to take up aggressive arms against them. So that they're almost like giving fuel to Hezbollah by bombing and killing 300 people in one go in 10 minutes in Beirut, or they're giving kind of motivation for more people to become fed up with, as you're saying, a state that you feel or a government that is not able to protect them. And I'm, and so if Hezbollah also, I'm curious about this because like if Hezbollah is not part of these peace talks, which seems like on one side it seems obvious that they wouldn't be part of it, and on the other it seems, how could you have this peace negotiation without without half of the people who are fighting it? Like, how are they even going to honor it? So if the government gets a peace deal or even normalizes relations with Israel out of this, is that even going to be accepted? And what percentage of is that going to lead to another civil war in Lebanon? I mean, like, is this, this feels like almost like it's on purpose, that they want to radicalize the situation into a greater sense of danger or perceived danger so they could kind of do whatever they want in defense.
Yeah, good question. From one side, it's like you said, the government does not have any authority to force any resolution on Hezbollah. It will only lead, as we said previously, to clashes between the military and Hezbollah, which is basically a civil war. And from the other side, if Hezbollah goes into negotiations with the Americans or the Israelis without the government, it's also a disaster for us as a Lebanese entity, as a state, because this means that just like what happened in Afghanistan, this gives legitimacy to Hezbollah as the principal actor and representative of Lebanon.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
The difference between Afghanistan and Lebanon is that Afghanistan is basically one. I'm sure there are a lot of ethnicities and different backgrounds, but here we have different sects. Although Afghanistan has one religion, which is more or less the majority is Sunnis. Here, you can't just say that Hezbollah can rule over Lebanon, which is why they can't and never will be able to rule alone as a Shia sect or a Shia group, except if there are big demographic changes that happen in Lebanon. So both sides or both scenarios will lead to nowhere. Hezbollah negotiating on Lebanon's behalf will deteriorate the state as we know it. And the state negotiating without coordination with Hezbollah will also lead to the deterioration of the state because it is putting them in confrontation with one another.
Yeah, and like I read this something recently about how, one of the arguments is that the U.S. Rubio is saying this, that like the U.S. would assist the Lebanese government in creating specialized units on the ground to fight Hezbollah, and so now you're going to have potentially U.S. troops, boots on the ground inside the country, as well as Israelis there, as well as that seems completely insane to me. I don't imagine that the Lebanese would accept that at all. If that was to be floated in this weird world that we have now, where normal rules and norms don't seem to apply, and people just a couple of individuals, the administrations in Netanyahu and Trump, are just kind of making decisions that no one else seems to. It's the word unprecedented is just like getting annoying, but it is true that everything is just like what is going on. If they were to take that path, what would happen?
I don't think they would actually send troops in Lebanon because first they have a very dark memory of doing that, and second, I don't think Trump has the political momentum to actually send troops to the Middle East right before the midterms. If he wanted to do this, he would have done it in Iran. But there are already military experts that the US has across Lebanon in Lebanese armed forces bases. They can maybe, if this is part of the agreement that ends up happening between Lebanon and Israel and sponsored by the US, train troops, as we said. But I don't think this is gonna happen. As you said, it's if we accept this, it means we're going on a collision path with Hezbollah. I think with all my anger and issues with our leaders, I think they have at least knowledge of what civil war is and are trying to stay clear of this path because it will erode their power first. So I'm not saying they care about the country, but they care about themselves, they care about their families. Civil war will directly impact them and their lives and their families' lives. And yeah, I think everyone in Lebanon understands that civil war cannot be controlled by the local parties. It will be bigger, and Syria is a direct example of that. No one understood how the developments happened and how eventually the Syrian government collapsed and the Shara government took its place. Uh, it all is not a bubble. It all interacts with the different dynamics in the region and the world. I think no one is ready for that here. However, civil wars don't need 90% of the people to take up arms and go to the street and start killing each other. It
Exactly.
requires one, uh, maybe intelligence backed act to happen and create very high tensions between the different communities that live in Lebanon. And you just need an AK-47 to go to the street and close it and force your will on the neighborhood. So this is what might create some fear in our minds because there are a lot of new actors in Lebanon that are maybe that have some ambition to become politically involved and might see that this path is their way to achieve power. I'm not sure how it's gonna end. Let's hope for the best.
Yeah, but maybe this is the reason why maybe external power or like external groups will push to for this civil war again to just to change the whole thing and rebuild another system. And maybe this is the problem here, because yeah, civil war it will be maybe easier for to change everything.
I think they're trying, and they've been trying to do it for a long time. The 17th of October repercussions, the 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 revolution that happened in Lebanon a few years ago, in 2019, the Beirut port bombing, explosion, every big act, the repercussions of that act, I don't want to say the act itself was organized. I don't believe this. But how the events unfold after these big acts tell you that there are forces at play that want us to clash with one another. And honestly, I think I need to give them the benefit of the doubt. Our leadership has been kind of wise in this arena and are trying to steer off clear from civil war. This is the only thing that maybe they're good at and they're doing a good job at least for the moment.
So, Jad, I'm gonna challenge you to kind of do one of those YouTube videos where you explain a super, super complex thing within 2 minutes, right? So help us understand why Lebanese society right now, based off its political structure, since its inception, has this like unique nature and therefore makes it really, really vulnerable to something like a civil war.
I like this question. So to understand this, you need to dive into Lebanon's history a bit, which is directly tied to Syria's history, as Ziad might know. But I will not go into the specifics. I will leave this to historians, actually. But like, from a broad context, you can't understand modern Lebanon without understanding how the regions of what is now Lebanon were governed by the Ottoman Empire, which only directly ruled over the main cities, which were Beirut, Tripoli, Aleppo, Damascus, and left the rural areas to be ruled by the most powerful people or entities on the ground, which were either the clergy or wealthy people that had backing from the Sultan, which is exactly why you can understand how these people, these types of elite, are still in power today. So when the Ottoman Empire fell, the sects were the organized entities on the ground. All right. So they had the power and the authority to talk to the people, to organize how their societies function, communicate with one another, and the individuals أحوال شخصية يعني it means the the individual's rights or how it interacts with authority basically. When the French came to rule the area under the mandate, first they decided why should we force or work on creating a national identity when we can just use whatever divisions there are on the ground to divide and conquer and solidify our rule. And they did that in Lebanon and in Syria. Eventually, they created or they evolved the existing political system that was actually between sectarian and also class based and made it into an actual political system that is still functioning to this day, which gives each sect, each main sect in Lebanon, a part of the power, which is a power sharing system. So the Maronites have the president, the Sunnis have the prime minister, the Shias have the uh, speaker of the house. And every few years, when events force the system to reconsider itself or demographic changes happen, first when the Palestinians were kicked out of Israel and then kicked out again from Jordan and arrived here and started causing problems with the local populace. This led to a break in the balance and created the civil war, which led to a change in the system and gave more power to the government, which is the Majlis al-Wuzara, which means the cabinet, if you want. This power, which was with the president, which was considered Maronite, has now become in the hands of the Sunnis. I'm saying this because I want you to understand how Lebanese see it. It doesn't have to be this way, but this is how it is in our minds. This is how our political system sees things and works. So, uh, going back to if this might lead to a civil war, it doesn't have to, but the fact that Lebanese people have a common unconscious or an understanding of society which is sect based will always lead them to fear that their sects will be transgressed upon from the other sect. And this will always lead them to uh, seek backing from an external power in fear that the other sect might take that power from them. And a similar comparison to that is how the different races in America also fear that the power of the whites, for example, is diminishing in front of the power of the minorities, which is what led Trump to victory in the elections eventually. So take that and put it in the constitution, put it in the backbone of the political system, and force a quota for each sect. For example, let's say there is a quota for blacks and whites and Mexicans and whatever in the US. This will lead to even more polarization based on this identity. and no other identity.
And by the quota, you mean like a political quota, as in representation.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. So in the House of Representatives, there is a quota for each sect and each region based on the electoral law, which changes.
But isn't all of this still based off of a census that was taken in 1932, and they've never done it again?
Definitely.
And so now
So
wouldn't everything just be turned completely upside down if they were to do another one?
definitely. So for example, if you were born in Akkar or your grandpa was born in Akkar and you haven't been there for your entire life, you've always lived in Beirut, you have no connection to the area which maybe your grandpa lived in the time of the census, you're still considered a person from Akkar and you have to vote there and you have to vote for the municipality there, not just the um, uh, deputy elections. So it's funny, kind of, but it is because of the foundation of our political system. If you do a census now, first off, it's about how you do it. If you do it to see how the sects are organized today and where each sect is based geographically and how much they are in numbers, it's a disaster because you are targeting the power balance and you want to tell the sects that this is your size and you need to accept that your size will lead to your share of power, and no one will accept this, especially the sects that feel that their numbers are dwindling. However, if you conduct a census that wants to see other things besides the sect, or do want to figure out what the sectarian distribution in Lebanon is, but not as the main priority. They want to understand how many engineers there are, how many doctors there are, how many AI experts there are, how many, I don't know, podcasters there are, all the different elements of society, not just sect, gender, religion, occupation, everything. Even what kind of diseases you have to figure out if you want to do a national strategy for health. You know what kind of medications you need. You know how you need to communicate with the insurance companies, with the medication companies to get these medications to your citizens. This changes everything. So this approach to the census will also help you to find a way to militarize. So you can maybe force a draft or create local militias made up of the people that you know are in the regions that need to be armed in case of any kind of conflict with our neighbors, which definitely we don't have the balance to fight from one army to another. We need to think of it asymmetrically. I'm rambling. It's a big topic,
No.
but
It's a good ramble because it really is kind of tying into I think one of your most recent posts about Lebanese identity, and I know that Ziad wants to comment on that as well. The idea that I think what really comes through cleanly in almost all of your posts is that you want you want people to think differently, as you joke around and call yourself a surreal dreamer, so to speak, that like you need more people to be dreaming of something else, that like we could possibly have a shift in I really love it, the idea that the census would be done and it would like strip it of its sects, like there would be no sects at all. That would be like a useless piece of information for the census. I think that would be really powerful. And I know that, like, Ziad, you wanted to talk a lot about identity, and then I really encourage everybody to check out your channel and listen to the video you just did on identity. It's really strong, and I really loved it. But I would like to hear a little bit what Ziad is thinking about the topic as well. Maybe you guys could just riff back and forth a bit.
Yeah, sure. It's like yeah, like what like Jad said, like all this history. It's like a make Lebanon. It's like have this unique situation, or like in some point this complex and like a complex politic, and you cannot like able to easy to understand what the situation in Lebanon. If you don't know all this stuff and even the sectors and about the civil war too. And this is what make Lebanon have this unique identity. Maybe it's like based on the city, because like maybe the people in Beirut have like a different mentality and different history in some point, even during the civil war with maybe Jbel or maybe in South Lebanon, or it depends about like what happened there. And yeah, this is what give uh, like a unique identity. Even when you live in Lebanon, it's like a very hard like to understand Lebanon or the situation well, if you not like go and go deep with this details in some point. But will take years from you, even if you live in Lebanon for maybe many years to understand, and maybe you will still discover new thing about yeah, to create your like a vision about this identity in some point, because the people, they are like a very I mean, yeah, have like a very difference in some point with from I mean, especially it's like a very small country. I mean, maybe from city to city, it's like a less 1 hour, but there is like a very big gap in some point. But this is give Lebanon this diversity in some point,
Richard,
to say.
yeah.
You were saying earlier today when we were setting up everything that you were saying that like Lebanon's unique in the Arab world because
Yeah.
of the presence of lots of things, not just political, not just religious, but like
Yeah, about this. I mean, this is what make Lebanon even. It's like a unique in the Middle East too. We was like a speaking about this, like when the president in Lebanon, maybe this is like the only country in Middle East. The president like when he finish his time, he go home, but in different country he's go jail or they get killed in some point. And this is it's like a very sad, but yeah, maybe this is what give. I mean, even in Arabic country, they follow the politic in Lebanon more than their own politic.
Really?
Yeah, this is because there is like in my opinion, there is like a real like a politic in Lebanon, and you can see this is not easy to lead or to take decision in this situation. You can see it from the Lebanon history through all this. It's like there's like many groups, many connection with the outside, because there's like a some groups in Lebanon like follow like maybe Saudi Arabia, some there is follow France, then some like follow Iran, or some like Syria. I mean, they have like a different like a power, external power in Lebanon, and they use it to fight inside Lebanon in some point.
But from a cultural perspective, like you were talking more about like how there's a diversity even in the media or in just compared to other places. You said that you feel that Lebanon stands out.
Yeah. Yeah, this is yeah, about, I mean, based on the art too, and based on the I mean, there's like around 20 channel, Lebanese channel, when there's like only one country have like like a one channel or two channel. And they produce a lot of like material in like based on the arts. I mean, we was like speak about the music and about the movies in some point. How much like this place like a very small in Middle East, but they affect the whole Middle East in some point, um, even based on the art in some point.
It's funny how you, as a Syrian who lived under an authoritarian regime for so long, look at us as something you kind of are envious of. While in Lebanon, if you go talk to any Lebanese, they just want to get a strong man who, even if they are treating us like shit, and there is a term in Lebanese, بدنا حدا يدعس علينا بالصرماية. So
Yeah,
we need a person who with the
like a dictator, kind of.
he's, they don't mind being hit figuratively. Just get us someone who can take decisions and get rid us of all this mess. We don't want 20 channels. We don't want I don't how many opinions. We just want to get on with our lives. We're fed up with all this back and forth, which is healthy if it's reasonable. But this polarization is tiring. I think it's happening more and more in the West, in France, in the US, this deadlock in the political systems that don't lead to any majority ruling. And effectively, since the political system in Lebanon is sectarian, there can never be a majority. The system forces all sects to be present in the government, which is fine if the political parties are made up of everyone. But if each political party is reserved to one sect, how could you even consider working with one another in one government and achieving anything? Which is why we're not achieving anything. We're just going back.
Well, you said it earlier that you feel like you're a curious but fed up Lebanese citizen, and then I hear this undertone in a lot of your videos that you just were like, can't we just be a bit more creative about what is possible, what we could possibly achieve if we broke from this kind of historical shackle that was essentially forced upon all the people. Like it was a decision made by outside powers. Again, external powers making huge decisions that impact the people that live in the region, and now inside borders that they essentially created, and you now have you can't seem to step out of it. So I'm curious about your curiosity and where you think it could go.
Look, I'm not in favor of putting the blame on the Europeans like everyone does. Definitely, the British and the French and a lot of external powers hold a lot of responsibility to what's happening. But we need to accept our borders were drawn and we're here to stay. Otherwise, what's the alternative? This is the basis of my thinking. So if I want to start by reconsidering the borders, I don't think the time or the circumstances are there for us to dream of a border that is more beneficial for us as Lebanese, except if we want to make or create states that are based on our sects. And this will leave us even more vulnerable to the strongest sect in the Middle East, which is the Zionist sect. I'm not going to call them Jewish because Jewishness is different from Zionism in my perspective. So, what I think of is, like Ziad said, Lebanon is blessed with geography that is different from its neighbors. It's a small area and diversity in terms of demography and culture and cuisine and the dialects and even how each community has ties to a different part of this world and how each region has immigrants and expats in a different country. This gives us an edge that honestly no other Arab country and even very few nations in the world has. However, as long as we're treating each other as this sect has this many expats in this country, and this sect has a powerful lobby for itself in France, for example, it will lead us nowhere. What I aspire for is for us to, first of all, accept our diversity. It's not a curse, it's a blessing. I don't care how you go to the beach. I don't care if you drink or you don't. You can do whatever you want. It's silly. Saying that I don't want to live with that person because of such insignificant details is just hiding the fact that we are afraid of one another and just are trying to justify this fear with stuff we don't understand. It's easy to say I don't like people from Papua New Guinea if I don't know anyone from Papua New Guinea, you know? And I can assure you there are people in Lebanon that have never been to regions of the person or the group they claim they hate. They have never stepped foot inside. They just have this crazy idea that there are people who and chanting and running around wanting to kill each other. People are people, they want to live. And the reality is, we are one country, and we either live as one people or we don't. I don't want to live in an alternative scenario where we're not one country, because anything else is a disaster. And Ziad can tell us firsthand on how his country is being torn apart today.
I agree with you about this, like to not like a see like a one color or like a to have like a one color in the end, and like a to accept this diversity and like a, to accept this like colors in some point, like a, to say. But yeah, you have like this like experience and like you can see what happened in Syria. This is like horrible in some point. I'm not like a follow a lot like a what the news there. I'm like a disconnect from long time a bit. But yeah, in some point, when you say like a something about there's like a some people in Lebanon, they said we need this this like a leader, like a strong leader, like a to lead Lebanon in some point. I'm not like I agree with this because our experience in in Syria in some point, this is not a lead for anything. For me, this like a fighting in some point in Lebanon and even the civil war, it's lead like a, to have like a more awareness. To know how to lead the country more than to be to have like a dictator, like a system for a long time. This is will not like a make the people have this awareness to lead the country, and this is what happened in Syria now, because they don't have this knowledge to lead the country. They don't have this experience. You as a Lebanese, like you pass by. During the civil war, this is give you this mentality and this diversity in some point. Yeah, this is like my opinion about this. I know it's like a both in some point. It's not like it's not easy. The civil war and this experience for sure it's not easy to pass by if you can like have the result without like a pass by like this experience. It will be, I mean, very like a smart like a way to get, but yeah, and to not like have any experience like or like yeah, this is you can see it in most of the Middle East country.
But you were also
Yeah,
saying that like you know, you were born in like in Latakia, but then but you spent so much of your life in Lebanon that you like feel like more connected there or more aligned with that identity. And I'm curious about how you see the difference of the two.
Yeah, the difference because in Lebanon, from street to street, or from even like a small parts on a count on a city, you can see this like a different mentality. But in different country, they just like follow one system and they agree with one thing. But in Lebanon, it's very hard like to see two Lebanese have the same vision or like a same opinion about or they agree with everything. And for me, this is what we miss it in Syria in some point.
So you see that as Jad is saying, is like that's a blessing to have that kind of diversity of
Yeah.
intellectual opinions and thoughts on things, as opposed to it being. But I'm curious if maybe it's that society spends so much time being kind of led by a strong man, right? This like kind of ridiculous. And most of these strong men are very weak people, but they have the power, they have the structure, and they have the military, and they have the controls. So they are strong in how they wield their power. But then that forces the societies into a position where they can't act up, or they can't act out. They can't speak up for themselves. They can't really do much. So then, without significant consequences, and then take that over decades, and it kind of conditions the society to not have the ability to, as you're saying, think more surreal or in a more dreamlike state of like, what could we possibly create here, instead of just accepting this as what we have. Yeah, so I wonder, like, you exit one space that has this like sense of like kind of dominance, and then you open up into another space that doesn't have that, and maybe for you that was like a freeing
Yeah, I think
experience.
yeah. Because in the end of this, like a system, like a strong one, like a someone like a lead the whole system, but in the end it's fall. And but in Lebanese experience, like is just okay. They keep going to discover way to escape from this situation, or like to build their, or to find system fit with everyone. Um, yeah, this is the difference between this system and this system. This one is just like a stay and like a stuck, or just like a make a hold. But another system, okay, it's fight and not a stable and not a easy. It's not easy to get to, but still they trying to find something. But in another one, just like hold, or like a, just like a stay like this, and you waiting nothing in some point.
But like separate from the general identity, like the different phases or slivers of what identity may be, Jad, what do you feel like the Lebanese are unified on? What specific things are they unified in resistance to, in support of? Are they, what are they kind of pulling in the same direction?
So a lot of things actually bring the Lebanese together. First of all, I would say is our connection to the land, and this can be seen firsthand in the response of the people of the south, and how the second the ceasefire was announced, roads were filled with cars going back to the south, even on uh, destroyed bridges that were being fixed impromptu. And even historically, if you go back to how each Lebanese community, I'm not going to say the state because this is where our weakness is, the central part of organization, how each community fought back against aggressors in different areas in Lebanon. So first off is our connection to the land. There are a lot of cultural things that unite us: the cuisine, the similar traditions, the Sunday lunch with the family, the barbecue, the going to the beach, going to the snow, etc. These things that are marketed as being Lebanese and kind of cliche and cringe maybe, but they are actually a fundamental essence of what being Lebanese is. And I think Ziad knows what I'm talking about. Just sitting at home in Beirut, maybe going to a restaurant or a bar or a cafe, and heading to Jbel or to Faraya or going to Shuf or Alay or I don't know what. You can go anywhere in Lebanon so quickly. So you have a connection to everything and you have access to everything, which is maybe what Ziad was talking about. There is no fear of moving around to some extent. There is also the connection to our sects. I think this, although it can be kind of dividing, it's also uniting because it is part of our identity. If someone wants to censor this, I think they would just be doing an opposite thing. You can't deny people to feel uh, connected to anything, let alone something that is so rooted in their perception of themselves. Our religious institutions and how religion plays a big part in our daily lives, and also our democratic process, however fucked up it is, but it's still a big part of our own thinking that we can say and do whatever we want. I would say and argue that it's a bit excessive because we live in chaos, and chaos is also part of our identity. If you come to Lebanon, you will fall in love with the chaos. You will never feel as free as you will in the streets of Lebanon. But being Lebanese and living full time here, the chaos drains you. And the chaos and instability is actually what stands in our way in building a state. So the lack of a state is what is creating this chaos because we don't have rules and regulations and laws. There are, and they are probably definitely applied on the weak, the regular citizens, not the Zaim, not the deputy, not the minister, not the whoever has power. Uh, Even on the citizens, you can find a way to just get out of problems and trouble. No one puts the seat belts. No one cares if the lights are green or red. They just go whenever they feel like it. No one is wrong when driving. Everyone is right. Everyone is right all the time in Lebanon. You can't argue with anyone because they are right in anything they say. They are a chemist expert. They are nuclear experts. It's funny, but it's also part of our identity. We have been through so much that honestly we know a lot about a lot of things, and we can enter a conversation in just about anything. We are we know about ammonium nitrate for some reason. We know about the types of weapons that are being developed across the world. We know about political issues more than people in the US can even dream of. We know about how the geography of the world is, the map. We know about a lot about culture. There's a lot of connection with Europe, with the West, with Africa, with Asia, with the Arab world through our expat network, through our brothers and sisters and friends who have been living here since Ottoman times, and the pace just keeps on increasing anytime there's a crisis. And this is all richness that we are failing to invest in. Why do Zionists in the 1850 have the right to dream of building a state in the middle of the Arab world and actually achieve this dream, this surreal dream, and us being the people that actually have been living here for millennia can't even dream of having one united country. It's weird. No, I don't think it's surreal. With all my uh, negative feelings towards Zionism, I can't but acknowledge that they have been able to leverage and maneuver all political troubles or political momentum instances to get to their goal, which is uniting the Jewish nation, as they call it, in one state. Even if these Jewish people were dispersed across the world and had no even notion of going to a place called Palestine. Why would I go there? I'm in Poland, I'm in Russia, I'm in New York, I'm in Yemen, I'm in Iraq, I'm in wherever the hell I am in the world. They managed to do it because they leveraged their wealthy people, they managed their expat network, their lobbying in the Western capitals, and they put the will and acted upon it. We have everything it takes to be a strong state. I'm not saying strong state as someone, a state that can rival China and the US, but a decent state, let's say, that can give the Lebanese citizen the basic fundamentals of life and let us do our best to build a decent life in Lebanon instead of immigrating to Europe, to the US, and feeling this sick feeling of being attached to our country while it's being bombed and not being able to do anything about it. We can, there's so much potential here, and I really hope we can actually first create the vision and build the will, and eventually put the effort into achieving this vision.
Yeah, I think that ties nicely into what you had said in one of your recent posts about if you do even like a light dive into Lebanese history, even in the modern sense, you see all of these terrible things that the Lebanese people have endured. And just in the last 30 years, if you go back even further, it's just like it's even more intense. And yet you're saying that we can't be bound together by feelings alone. The identity can't be built off of just our negative feelings in response to these tragedies or these struggles, that you have to put something better together to be unified and create that identity. And I think that you really nail it with what you just said. And
Yeah, I agree with Jad when he said like it's like a bit kiosk. And I heard this the same what you mentioned. Uh, Many of my European friends they was living in Lebanon too, and they said the same. They feel more freedom here in Lebanon more than in their own country. With many things, I mean, like what he mentioned, I mean, you are like a free to do whatever you want. It's like a kiosk, but it's like a kiosk, but it's like a still, it's like a identity for this place in some point. In some point, like someone like asked me who's the president now here, and I think you remember when Lebanon passed like 3 years, I think, without any
yeah,
anyone,
two
and
years or
who
so
like
with that one.
and he
Yeah.
not able to understand how it's everything working now without president for three years without. And I said this is a Lebanon, this is I mean, yeah, and everything kept going there. And this is what make Lebanon, it's like a really very unique place.
And to tie it back, to tie the identity part with what you just said, Douglas, no one will be able to enforce or build up a national identity above the sectarian identity, which is, as I said earlier, the most rooted and organized identity in society, if the state doesn't act to establish this. It doesn't just have to do it by, uh, let's say, building up a narrative, a national narrative that is marketed in the media and the history books. This is part of it, but it also has to organize society itself in a way that ties it to the state, not the sects, and reshuffle how the citizens first interact and see each other and interact with the state. As long as citizens in Lebanon are organized under a sectarian organization model, their allegiance to the sect will come first, and their identity will first be towards the sect. When you reshuffle this relationship and put the citizen at the center and the state to be directly in communication and contact with the citizen, just like in the West, in China, everywhere in the world, there should not be a middleman between a citizen and its state. Here there are middlemen. The middlemen are theoretically the sects, but practically the leaders of the sects, the ones who hijack the sects for their own benefit and intermarry between one another. Most sectarian leaders are married from other sectarian groups. Why? Because for them, it's not about sectarianism, it's about class, it's about economic status. They would, and they do, sit on company boards with one another and agree on, let's say, destroying a mountain in Shikka because it's beneficial for them, because uh, they extract cement or the raw material that makes up cement, and regardless if it hurts the population there, if it's causing cancer, regardless of the economic and ecologic damage it's doing on the region, just because it benefits their own power and their own pockets. This is the problem here. The sect is denying us the freedom of objecting to our leaders, who are hiding behind the curtain of, I am here to protect us from the other. We need to remove this veil. There is no other. There are people that have different backgrounds, which is this is present everywhere in the world, but it's not highlighted as much as it is in Lebanon, and it's not at the core of their political system like it is in Lebanon. And this allows our leaders to just reign without having to fear being ousted ever, honestly.
Yeah. Let's be like a bit like a positive about something. What happened um, in explosion in Lebanon, in Beirut. There is like a many communities like a start like a, to help the people who's like living in affected area in like a Ashrafi like when I was like living there from Shtura or from different there's like a small like organizations like a start like a starting help because they know they don't wait to the government to take a step or like to make any action. They make this action directly, and really I like this. Like what you said, there's like a communities start like a help each other based on human level, not like based on what the background of these people are. And this is like a bit like a really surprised me, and really I like and like this thing. No one like waiting the government to, because they know there's like a no power with the government, but who's like a have a even like a small power, he start like a to help and to rebuild the whole houses, like to help the old peoples who's not able to fix the houses. And this is came this money from people or from small organizations. And this is like a small example about how Lebanese in specific event or like a specific moment how they act, even if they not like maybe prepare for this thing. And this is something really I want like to mention it.
Yeah, I agree. We have a high sense of solidarity, especially in times of crisis. And this, well, thank you for bringing this up. I think on an individual level, we are able to be, we are able to interact and be comfortable with whoever we're talking with from any different sect and background. But we have this perception that as groups, we need to kind of be careful of one another. But it's fine if I'm sitting with you from a different sect and you from another sect. There are differences that we might be weirded out about if we're not used to talking to such people from these backgrounds. But eventually, if something happens to you, I will be there for you, especially if you live nearby and uh, the same destruction or the same hurt is happening to you as it's happening to me. However, when you take it on a larger scale, this is where the differences start taking a more negative shape. But yeah, I do agree with you. The weakness of our central government leads us as individuals to initiate, and I think this is why we're called resilient, which is a word I hate, and why our expats do so well abroad because we're programmed to initiate and to build and to be great individuals. We just don't know how to act as a group, as a community.
Well, I think that if you again you do a pretty decent like dive into Lebanese history, and you'll see that you do have the history of acting as a community and against pretty extreme situations. And so the Cedar Revolution like forces Syria out without violence, essentially, after this assassination and then you have that 2006. Granted, the stalemate that happened there after between Hezbollah and Israel, you still had Israel gets forced out in 2000. I mean, like, you have a lot of moments in your history where you really did remove major obstacles to your safety by acting together. And I'm thinking the economic crisis and the collapse of the country in 18, 19, 20, like it's 6 years later. It's obviously not like fixed completely, but like you have weathered these storms. And I'm curious, you referenced the land as something part of the identity. And I wonder if what's happening now with the destruction in southern Lebanon, the yellow line, your minister calling it an ecocide, the fight for people to really want to return to this territory, but the territory has been like poisoned and contaminated and essentially just leveled. I wonder if that will become another moment where the Lebanese will unify and resist this in a way that would be beneficial.
It's a tough question. I think we're united in our want and goal to have a united country, unified country, and to free our land from occupation. But we're divided in how to get there. And it's tough, honestly. It's not an easy question. The government is not in an easy position. And I honestly don't know really how to see things, really, because so much can change, so much can happen, and a lot do happen in Lebanon, especially when it's happening because of bigger dynamics in the region and the world. So the people will not accept any land to be forsaken. This is something I'm sure of. And I don't think a reasonable government will accept that because it will face a lot of backlash. The alternative, or to get there, a lot of heavy concessions will need to be made. And I'm not in a position to say what our options are because I'm not in the government, honestly. But I can maybe speak my wishes, if you want, which are basically to have some kind of red lines with Israel, to know where to start and when to stop conceding, and actually leverage everything going on. Even if we oppose Hezbollah politically, we can't deny that its actions against Israeli troops in the south do give the government leverage to kind of maneuver its way through the negotiations with Israel, because they are hurting. So every day you hear there is a soldier being hit. They are developing new tactics and new ways to kind of defy Israeli presence in the south. Plus, the changing dynamics in the region after the Iran war and the awareness, the growing awareness between specifically the GCC and especially Saudi Arabia, that Israel is a growing threat, and that Turkey is also sharing this thought. I think this is something that we can leverage to build new connections with states and countries that do not want us to fall completely under Israeli influence, nor want us to also fall under Iranian influence. Not calling for the shifting of our allegiances from two rivaling powers to different rivaling powers. No, I'm just saying we need to act like any normal state and build relations that benefit us. If Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Egypt, Pakistan are coming together to face the growing threats in the region, we should leverage this new dynamic and see how this political momentum can affect the negotiations. If the cost that Hezbollah is incurring on Israel can benefit us in the negotiations to uh, up the line of concessions, we should take advantage of this. If Iran's negotiations with the US or our negotiations with Iran, if we can make this happen, can also make us or put us in a better situation and also achieve some sort of an outcome or resolution which brings in Hezbollah into the state, we should also take advantage of this. I'm not gonna tell you how or the final outcome because no one knows, and sure, anyone who actually says they know is just lying or just being wishful. But I can just say how we can strategize to leverage all these uh, potential power, uh, what do we say? Powerful tools, if you will, diplomatic tools, military tools, economic tools, whichever tools we have to better our position.
I think that may be the best way for us to end this part one of a never-ending conversation with Jad Talks Politics, because I know that we will definitely connect again and dive into economics and more history and more of the geopolitical realities that are facing everyone there. And again, like I was saying, and also, Ziad, thank you so much for taking the time to step in front of the camera instead of being behind it this time. We're really, really thankful to have your perspectives and help our audience learn a little bit more about things from a different way.
Thank you for so much for to having me too in this episode.
Thank you guys for having me, and thank you for giving Lebanon the opportunity to. I'm not speaking on behalf of Lebanon. I'm not claiming to do that, but it's nice to have the platform to actually raise the concerns of people who don't align with the black and white divide that is always portrayed in the media, whether it is the local media or the media in the West. I think I'm not claiming that a lot of people think the way I think, but I'm trying to say that there are different ways of doing things, and thank you for giving me the platform to do so.
Yeah, and keep dreaming, my friend. I know there are a lot of other ones out there with you, and we're with you as well. So till we talk again.
Definitely.
Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us for this special episode of Fractured with our guest, Jad and Ziad. And we will be back very, very soon to talk about another important topic. And, until then, see you soon.